Okay. Hi everyone, we're about to get started for today's AGM. Before we get any further, I would like everyone, if you can quickly take a seat, get your food, get your drinks, get ready for the AGM, that would be great. Are you ready? Okay. We're officially going to get started. The online people can hear us. I'd like to open today's meeting at 12:21 p.m. and then start with acknowledgement of traditional owners. The Curtin Guild would like to pay our respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander members of our community by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which the Bentley campus is located, the Mudjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and on our Kalgoorlie campus, the Wongatha people of the Northeastern Goldfields. We acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and the contribution they make to the life of this university, city, and this region. And I want to say a big thank you to everyone that's coming out today, and I want to extend my respect to any First Nations people present at the AGM. Before we get any further, I wanted to remind you that the Guild does not tolerate any instances of Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, racism, homophobia, or ableism. If you receive a warning about your behaviour at the AGM, you must stop the behaviour you are being warned about. If you don't and receive a second warning, you'll be asked to leave the AGM. Non-Guild members are not permitted to speak, and if you'd like to speak at the AGM as a Guild member, please raise your hand. We'll go on to attendance. So for members present and others present, they'll be listed at the meeting, and it's those who have scanned in today. For apologies and leave of absence, I received one apology from February Metcalf, who could not make it today. I would like to propose a procedural motion that the Secretary be appointed Deputy Chair of this meeting. This is moved by myself and seconded by Mitch Craig. Can all those in favour of the motion vote yes through a show of hands? All those in favour for Mitch to be the Deputy Chair? Yes, vote. All those against? No, this motion carries. We'll go into minutes of the previous meeting. So for the previous meeting minutes, the motion is that the minutes of the annual general meeting held on the 10th of May 2023 be approved as a true and accurate record of the proceedings of that meeting. This has been moved by Mitch Craig and seconded by myself. Is there any discussion on the minutes before we go to a vote? If not, we'll go to a vote to approve the previous meeting minutes. Can all those in favour of this motion please raise their hands? In approving the minutes? All those against? No, this motion's carried. You okay online? So next we'll go on to verbal reports. I'll start with my reports for the previous Guild President, to go over what we did last year in the 54th Guild Council. So starting at the beginning of the term of the 54th Guild Council, the Guild continued making submissions to the University's Accord panel, with your Guild being the only student organisation to participate at all stages of the Accords process and being called by the panel to provide further evidence about the placement poverty crisis students at Curtin are experiencing. Spoiler alert, the Guild was referenced in the Accords recommendations this year for students on mandatory placements to be paid, and on Monday this week, the Education Minister declared that nursing, social work and teaching students will be paid whilst on placement. This is a hard-fought win delivered by your Guild. Speaking of reviews, the Guild took control of the narrative of the WA Universities review by beating the government and universities in releasing our statement to the media, shaming the panel for not informing student guilds about the review. Your Guild President managed to lobby the state government to push for guilds to get a seat at the table and open for wider consultation that wouldn't previously be accepted. A quick pivot, parking is a hot topic we all love to hate, and your Guild continued to freeze the price of parking for the third year in a row and managed to do some controversial signs that reminded the university that Sello Park sucks. And food for fines, more parking and volunteer fines have been introduced. Your Guild fought hard at the academic board to bring back your second tuition-free week, which you proudly say will be introduced in the coming years. So all those who needed the extra week off during semester are looking forward to that. When the university tried to take away self-certified assessment extensions, we reminded them that the only difference between a 5-day self-cert and a 5-day medical certificate is whether a student can afford to see a GP. One of the biggest wins your Guild Pres managed to pull off last year was increasing Guild funding in real terms for the first time since the introduction of SAF, keeping essential services like Student Assist going strong. This is estimated to be nearly $1 million extra funding for student services delivered by your guild. Rewriting the regulations for the first time since the big deal days of 2018 was a grueling process, but we're proud to say that with the changes, any students can now participate in the representation board, not just those elected. The rental crisis hit students hard, with the university failing to warn students moving to Perth how difficult it is to get rentals and how expensive it would be. This led to the Guild to successfully lobby for the return of the $1,500 accommodation subsidy for international students and for the university to introduce $2 million worth of housing bursaries for students living in accommodation. We also joined the Make Renting Fair WA Alliance and successfully advocated for student renters and lodgers to be included in the Residential Tenancy Act, being in their top 10 priorities for reform, with the reform process kicking off late last year. I could go on about the wins your 54th Guild President delivered for you across his 2 presidential terms, but I'll save you the yap and I'll pass you on to the Secretary's report.
In 2023, the main thing the Secretary did was update 4 out of 5 sets of Guild regulations with the Guild Legal Committee. This is the first time they've been updated since 2018, and it fixed several flaws with the regulations, including revising the rules around resignations so people can resign to take up another Guild role, introducing the new Vice President Sustainability and Welfare role to reduce the load of the Vice President Education in relation to welfare issues, and have an officer of the Guild who focuses on sustainability. Correct the side effect of 2-year Guild Council terms, bringing that an executive could previously be an executive and a Guild Councillor. Changing the rules for the annual general elections so that the West Australian Electoral Commission can take up running the annual election again, and changing the regulations to reflect the convention of the queer and Indigenous officers being elected at the annual general election. The Secretary and Legal Committee also updated the Guild bylaws to reflect changes to the regulations. At the same time, all clubs and societies related bylaws were separated out into their own set of bylaws to make it easier for clubs to find and read the bylaws relevant to them. This also involved rewriting and consolidating the 2 default constitutions into one that works for both incorporated and unincorporated associations. The Constitution for Representation Board was changed to allow participation from any student instead of only those elected. There is now a time set aside for public questions, and students can submit motions to the Representation Board. It has been pleasing to see several ordinary students have begun to actively participate in the Representation Board since the changes. The Secretary was also involved in some of the representation campaigns, including the University Accords, WA Universities Review, the NTE action for the enterprise bargaining that occurred last year, and the parking campaign. That's it for me.
Hello, honourable Guild members. Whoopsie, I just spilt some water and some electricity, so something might need to do with that. Are we all right to continue? Oopsies. I'm going to continue on. My name is Veronica. I'm the Vice President Education this year and also the Vice President Education last year. I'll start by talking about something that was a lot of work for the Guild generally, and that was essentially our campaign to improve Australia's higher education. And that was done through the federal government's Australian Universities Accord, which was about a year-long inquiry into higher education, and now it's right at the start, at the end of 2022. We know the loudest stakeholders in this review will be universities themselves, and realistically, it's shown that you absolutely cannot trust universities to stick up for students and provide suggestions that will benefit students, so we engaged as much as we could. We submitted papers in response to Accords consultations and also to some of the specific inquiries that came out of the Accords, including an inquiry into the issues surrounding AI and addressing gender-based violence in higher education. In our submissions, our media statements and interviews, we consistently advocated and demonstrated the importance of many things, increasing the repayment threshold for HECS debt, moving towards courses being fully funded, aka free education, abolishing the ridiculous and unfair job-ready graduate package reforms, universities requiring a legal duty of care for students, raising research stipends to above minimum wage, opening up access to Centrelink independence, making it easier for international students to be eligible for Commonwealth-supported places, and making it easier for them to be permanent residents, We advocated for the importance of student autonomy and student experience to be delivered by students. We were also vocal in the recommendation that vice chancellor salaries need to be transparent, regulated and capped. And we pushed for better mechanisms to reduce sexual violence in universities. And we went very hard for a system where students can get paid for their mandatory placements and preps. We focused a lot of effort into that area, and if you've seen the news recently, we have made some wins. Of course, all the more medium outcomes of the applause will not be clear until the federal budget has dropped this year. Another campaign that the Guild endorsed and supported was supporting the restatement from the heart and a yes vote for an First Nations voice to Parliament enshrined in the Constitution. As we know, the outcome of that referendum was a no. You can argue that this was an eye-opener for many at how much work we need to do to eliminate racism in Australia. For this campaign, the Guild created online and physical content which informed and cut through misinformation surrounding the referendum and the Uluru Statement. We worked collaboratively with Indigenous staff at Curtin to create informative and supportive content. With the First Nations officer last year, we made a submission to the government in support of the referendum and in support of the Uluru Statement. And we distributed information at major events such as O-Day, and we did live enrolment drives to get young students enrolled to vote for the referendum, including on this campus, but also supported other student guilds in WA to help inform students. While it is incredibly disappointing to see how misinformation and fear have been used to demolish the prospect of constitutional recognition through a voice, our campaign saw hundreds of passionate students who wanted to see positive change, volunteer for the campaign, and we contributed to the increased youth enrolment in WA, which is the highest ever youth enrolment rate in history, I believe. And it's important to note that the Guild will always support First Nations justice. Polling booth data demonstrates that the absolute majority of Indigenous Australians wanted a yes vote, and we are very proud that we did everything we could to push for a yes. Speaking of yes and no votes, last year, as Mitch mentioned, the National Tertiary Education Union led a campaign against Curtin's no-union ballot for a proposed enterprise agreement. The Guild endorsed this campaign for a staff no vote in support of fairer working conditions, adequate compensation for First Nations employee targets and other working improvements. As the conditions of Curtin staff, especially academic staff, reflect our conditions as students and quality of education, we supported their industrial action. In response, we did mass road postering across campus, about 500 plus posters. Our digital screens in outlets had videos up. We made videos and posters as well and flyers to staff and students. The no vote was successful, and the NTU was able to force the university to negotiate with them and secure a much fairer deal. A few other smaller initiatives I'll just highlight is our Guild Quick Assist video series that we created last year. These were videos that were published to the website, YouTube and social media, which address common issues that students come to our Student Assist service for. That includes things like how to deal with academic misconduct, appealing assignments, misconduct outcomes, how to get a student smart writer, budgeting, or even making formal complaints at the university. And one final thing that I was able to do last year through Curtin's Fieldwork Governance Group was address the long-time problem of disabled and neurodivergent students facing ableism while on their pracs, especially within teaching pracs at Curtin. And now Curtin has implemented a host blacklisting system for hosts who have perpetrated ableism or anything else that makes them unsuitable to taking Curtin students. However, there's a lot more work to holistically address this issue. Overall, it was a really busy year with a lot of great wins and a lot of groundwork done for many campaigns that will hopefully continue into the future. Thank you.
2023 was a year marked for our events by record numbers, as we saw a massive resurgence to campus life post-COVID. We hosted and ran more events than ever before, including the most giveaways in a single year ever from the Student Guild, and various events reached their highest attendance numbers since 2020. Love was in the air as the year saw the introduction of the brand new Love Week, where students and staff alike celebrated their loved ones and the relationships they hold dear to themselves. New bonds were formed and old bonds were reinforced as we fostered the Curtin community that we all live in and share together. 2023 also saw the on-campus Pride Parade as hundreds gathered to celebrate our community and had lots of fun along the way. Featuring a fan favorite, blow-up unicorn outfit, it was the perfect kickoff to the Pride Parade once students came back to campus. A second event to celebrate all facets of our community was the Equity Festival, where your equity representatives hosted various activities for students to come together. The Guild Ball also returned in a big way with the Under the Sea theme, and saw your guild president in a captain's hat and various elected guild reps in a lobster costume. As usual, the event was a sellout and students had a blast. The TAV parties also returned in dramatic fashion, with the Toga Party, as usual, kicking off the year. Rave Cave to close off semester 1 and Y2K to kick off semester 2. The TAV was completely transformed and the undercover courtyard turned into a giant dance floor as hundreds of students partied into the night. Of course, 2023 also saw the return of many of our staple events like O Week and O Day for both semesters to welcome students, new and returning alike, onto our campus. Each faculty representative ran their own Grill the Guild each semester, serving hundreds of students each time, and answering any queries or concerns any students had for them. In 2023, I'm proud to say that we served the highest amount of sausages in a year ever. For our international students, the Guild, in collaboration with Pathway Migration, hosted 4 international student migration assistance sessions throughout the year, providing students with invaluable visa information on their pathway to permanent residency. In addition, the year saw the collaborative Beach Bonanza Sundowner, joint hosted by our international and our postgraduate student committees. Throughout the year, the Guild hosted various food giveaways, free help sessions, and a pop-up cat cafe as part of our Stress Less, Mind Mojo, and Mental Health Weeks. The cat cafe in particular was a very loved event that saw a constant crowd that did not let up for the entire duration of the event. For our sustainability-minded friends, we held the pop-up thrift market, where students made a donation to enter, with all proceeds going to Make Rented Fair WA as part of the housing campaign. For students with unique skills, they had the chance to put it all on display at Talent for Tomorrow, a talent show joint hosted by the Guild and the university. Many students have had further talent performing opportunities come up as a result of this talent show, with some getting the opportunity to perform at graduation ceremonies. For our clubs, we hosted the Clubs Carnival as part of a wider Clubs Week, a spotlighting and featuring many clubs on the main Guild social media to promote these clubs to a wider audience. We also hosted the first ever Adobe Storytelling Challenge for clubs, which provided clubs with the opportunity of learning social media skills and promotion skills straight from representatives from Adobe. This concludes my report for 2023. I'll pass you on.
Hi everyone, I'm Jackie. I'm the Vice President of Sustainability and Welfare. This is a new role that was established in December last year, so I don't actually have anything to report on for this AGM specifically. The role doesn't exist, but what I can tell you about is the establishment of the role and some of the projects I'm working on. So I was part of the Guild Council last year and was involved in changing the regs to establish the role. The role is initially responsible for issues relating to mature age and rural and regional enrolled students, matters relating to climate justice and sustainability policy. The key responsibilities of the role cover matters relating to sustainability, equity and welfare. So I'm the line manager for the equity reps and the ISCP, sorry. And I just want to highlight some of the amazing work that a couple of the equity reps did last year. So the 2023 Queer Officer, Imari, did some amazing work on the dead naming project. This project aimed to identify and address the issues of dead naming within Curtin systems and had some early successes, including having preferred names called out at graduations, which actually made a difference between people coming and not coming to their own graduation. And more recently, preferred names being printed on student IDs. The 2023 Accessibility Officer, Ray, was able to introduce wheelchair accessible laboratory location in Building 500. An inter-campus laboratory access community of practice was established to support the labs on campus and become more accessible, and successfully advocated for implementation of automated transcription and captioning on iLectures, and to have an all-campus accessibility audit carried out. This is a proverbial foot in the door for disabled chemistry students. The key point of the wheelchair accessible lab bench existing is that staff can no longer claim that wheelchair users and others who need to sit in labs pose a safety hazard. Now they need to engage in reasonable and adjustment processes in good faith, which wasn't happening before. Lab access is an ongoing process and is slow moving, but is being pushed continuously. So some of the projects I'm working on this year are introducing a recycling hub at the library. So it's a space where students can bring in those hard to recycle items like toothbrushes, toothpaste, batteries, blister packets, everything like that. I'm also advocating for reverse cycle vending machines through Containers for Change, so your students can process those containers on campus instead of having to go off campus, with the funds going directly back to students. And I am also trying to introduce a sustainability week. So that's expanding on the pop-up thrift store to deliver a sustainability week where we deliver sustainable orientated activities like DIY lip scrubs and sustainable workshops like how to make your own gingerbug.
I'll now hand over to David, the Managing Director of the Guild, for their report.
All right. Just touching on a few operational things very briefly. Really pleased that there was $400,000 in discounts to Guild members at our outlets. So hopefully that certainly helps with cost of living. I know it's tough for students. A couple of other things. We've got some additional staff, so one in the club space and another one with student assist, once again to improve the service to you. And the final thing I'll touch on is the library cafe was refitted and reopened early last year in time for semester one.
That's all for verbal reports for now. If those who have questions, that will be a separate item on the agenda, so you don't have to worry about that. So I'll move on to item 5, financial statements and annual report. We have motion that the 2023 annual report and 2023 audited financial statements be noted. This is moved by myself and seconded by Mitch. Can I see a raise of hands of all those in favour in accepting the financial report and the annual report? Amazing. That motion's carried. Okay, we'll go on to item 6, which is member question time. We have 15 minutes reserved for members' questions. And to remind everyone just from the beginning to be respectful on everyone's opinions and debate and to ask questions to the executive committee and the managing director. Do we have anyone that wants to start with questions? Yeah, I have someone at the back.
Can I start speaking? Hi, Guild, hi, the representatives, and especially the president of Guild. I understand how much pressure you guys go through. I'm a president of an association, so completely understand that. But then I would like to know, how do we contact you? Back in 2022, I wanted to create a club here for the Indian international students because I'm a part of Indian Society of Western Australia Council Board. And I've got lots of opportunities and help and aid available for Indian international students, but I tried a lot to get through the application of the club. I did not get a yes or no, and I keep on repeating the emails to the President Guild. I did not get any reply, sorry about that, but then what is the procedure to approach you guys?
Yeah, so in terms of the club applications, last year we redid how we did our club forms and redid the form system to make it a lot easier. So I encourage you to reapply. In terms of emails, you said from 2022, in 2022 you were sending emails? Yeah, so in terms of in the last 7 months, I can say I haven't received an email about this matter. But I would highly, if you're struggling reaching out, we can also call Guild reception, and you can also call the OBs. And if you're having any struggle, you can also pop by the Guild office of 106F and email hello@guild.curtin.edu.au for a more general email that will be responded by reception. Yeah, amazing. All right, does anyone else have another question? Yeah, Erin.
Cool. Yeah, well, I think it's very positive that the Guild has taken a stand around a whole bunch of progressive issues this year. Obviously, recently around the genocide happening in Gaza, but obviously things like climate change, the referendum. So I was wondering if you guys could just make a more general comment about why you think it's important for student unions to be sort of campaigning and taking a stand around these sorts of social issues.
Yeah, so one of the key focuses of the Guild is, and our core purpose is representation. And these are issues that young people, that students, that our members care about. And that's why we advocate for them on behalf of the Guild. And because of also being a student union, we have access to a lot of resources that allow us to do this. And we have a lot of pull politically, and we have achieved a lot of wins throughout history and participated in a lot of campaigns that have been successful. And that's why, as a student union, it's really important that our members stay politically engaged, and that because these are issues that our members care about, that we continue to reflect that in our actions, in our committees, everything we do, basically. Yeah, V, you want to add?
Thank you, that's a really good question. I think as well, we need to remember as students, even our lives are highly politicised by the government. And so we should be in solidarity with other groups whose lives have been politicised as well. Just wanted to add that.
Does anyone else? Yeah, Ella?
Is that working?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's really good that the Student Guild is has basically established in supporting the Curtin Gaza Solidarity Encampment. All around the world, students have started to take a stand, fighting for justice, fighting for equality. I think this is important considering we've seen over 34,000 people murdered by Israel in Gaza. Over half of these people are children. A lot of women as well have been murdered in this horrific onslaught. And so I think it's really important considering Curtin University has connections to weapons companies that, are complicit in what the IDF is doing. And so I just wanted to ask the Guild reps why you think it's important that the Curtin Gaza Solidarity Encampment has happened and that it continues.
So I think it's important. I'll start first by answering this question. I can pass it on to other members as well. But I think it's important that the Guild participates in the encampment and was one of the lead organisers for it in reflection of the statement that the Guild released about the occupation of Palestine in October of last year. We're standing in solidarity with the people of Gaza and the Palestinian community here on our campus and the broader Perth region. We don't stand for genocide at the Curtin Student Guild in our statement. That's why we're standing in solidarity with the people, and we think it's really important that we reflect our members, and in collaboration with the Curtin Palestinian Society, Friends of Palestine WA, that we hosted this encampment on our campus and reflected that yes, we voted this motion up through Reps Board and Guild Council, and then we actually deliver it in our actions and show that we do stand in solidarity with the people of Gaza. Did anyone else have any to add?
There's an item about this on the agenda, so I think we can go into it more there if there's any other questions about anything else in the time frame.
Does anyone else have any? Yeah, here, Oana.
Sorry, I do need to hold the microphone.
Okay. I'd seen that commercial operations had lost like over 800K last year. Can you comment on why that is?
Yeah, Dave. You'll have David, our managing director, comment on this first.
Was about
Commercial ops losing
Commercial
suppliers. Right, but what was about?
commercial operations losing 800,000 to
Well, we're losing money. Oh. So it was a little bit hard to hear up here with the truck in the background, but if I understand the question correctly, it was about commercial operations running at a loss. Yeah. Okay. So I guess by way of broad background, cafes and most of our outlets are of a cafe type nature, food and beverage, used to run at a profit margin of around 20%. Now they're running at, this is across Australia, at a little bit over 7% is a typical sort of figure. That's kind of where the discount is. We've had, and like all other, a lot of other businesses out there, food costs have gone up dramatically, far more than we've raised our costs. Labour costs have gone up significantly, energy costs that we pay for. So all of those things pushed our costs up. So unfortunately, that's one reason why we've had to raise some of our costs. And going forwards, it may be necessary to raise costs again. We always try and aim to break even and basically give discounts to students. So it's not aiming to be a profit-making business, but at the same token time, it can't run at a loss either. So we are looking at it very closely and really just trying to streamline costs at the moment.
Were there any further questions? Yeah, it's over here.
Sorry, I do need to hold it.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna ask, like, sometimes I'm walking on campus and I trip over a brick, which is very embarrassing. But I've noticed there's like a little trend where a lot of like the pathways around campus aren't paved correctly. And I fear that might be like an issue for people with crutches or wheelchairs or just normal people walking as well. Like, I heard one of my friends got injured by tripping over a brick last year, which was unfortunate. Is there anything that the guild can do for that, or?
Yeah, so this is an issue that we can raise with the university properties about like accessibility requirements and concern over the health and safety of students when navigating around campus. So that's something I can raise with the university. So easy. Is there any further questions?
I'm an international student doing my Master of Teaching program. I was really happy when I received your email on Monday that you cited for paid placements, but I realized that it's only for national students, not for international students. So I mean, Australia is hiring teachers from all over the world, and I wanted to know if you can undertake anything for international students being paid on placements.
Thank you for that question, and I agree it's really awful that not all students who have mandatory placements are getting paid generally across all areas of faculty and as well international students. The paid placements campaign doesn't stop just because they've introduced a few placements for some people. This isn't something we will give up. This isn't something that we won't keep talking about and campaigning on. And paid placements for international students is something that the Guild believes in and will advocate for. So thank you for bringing that up.
Are there further questions from members? If not, we'll go on to item 7, business on notice. So this is a resolution of a general meeting of the Guild shall be in the form of a recommendation to the Guild Council, except where contrary to the Guild statute book. Guild Council may by absolute majority reject the recommendation it deems that the recommendation may reduce the effectiveness of the Guild in performing its duties and functions as defined in the Guild statute book. Before we get on to the motion, I wanted to let everyone know that this will be in the style of formal debate. That means the mover and seconder will have the opportunity to speak first, and then we'll have a speaker for and against consecutively. If there's no speaker for or no speaker against, then the motion will go to a vote. So the item 7.1 is Gaza Solidarity Encampment demands, and it's the motion that the Curtin Student Guild notes the demands of the Curtin Gaza Solidarity Encampment for Curtin University to 1. Divest from all weapons companies, namely Curtin's partnership with Lockheed Martin, Babcock Australasia and Huntington Ingalls Industries. 2. Disclose all university investment and research connections to companies that support or have ties to Israel, the ADF and weapons manufacturing. 3. Divest from all Israeli companies and adhere to BDS standards, including divesting away from HP Tech. 4. Cut ties to Israeli universities. 5. Publicly denounce the ongoing genocide in Gaza, including the destruction of every university in Gaza and the horrific killing of Palestinian students, academics and staff. This has been moved by Veronica Gobber. Can I please have a seconder for this motion? Yeah, perfect. Razan. For the mover, would you like to speak first, Veronica?
Hi, everyone. I'm presenting this motion today, despite the Guild already over the years having affirmed their support for the freedom and liberation of Palestinians from the oppressive Israeli government regime. I wanted these demands, which are being called for by the Guild, many staff, many students, many student clubs, and other community groups to be noted at one of Guild's biggest meetings. The mass destruction and killing of people in Gaza, in Palestine, is one of the most horrific abuses of human rights and war crimes many people in this room have seen in their lifetime. Curtin is part of a network of global campuses. It has a Centre for Human Rights, and it claims to champion decolonisation, and yet it has not spoken out as an academic institution against what is being identified by prominent organisations such as Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International as apartheid and genocide. We are sending a clear message to Curtin and to our government that we will not be complicit and let our institutions be complicit in the face of horrific injustice. Student unions and university students have historically been a part of mass campaigns against war and violence, and we have had massive impacts as well. This issue is not something that we want students to shy away from or give up on. Furthermore, the influence of Curtin University cannot be understated. As a respected academic institution with so many resources, Curtin's actions carry weight and influence far beyond our campus. By divesting from weapons companies, disclosing all investments and ties, and cutting ties with institutions complicit in oppression, Curtin can set a powerful message and example for other institutions to follow. This university has an opportunity to be leaders for positive change, or it can continue to be partly responsible for aiding the Israeli government and weapons companies in their profiting and assault of the land and people of Palestine. I've seen the passion and hope for better throughout the student community over the past week, and I hope here today we can ratify these demands and pressure Curtin to act on them. And I want to say thank you to all the students and the student clubs and the groups who have supported our activism in this encampment, and you know who you are, and I know that together we can make a difference.
Thank you, Veronica. Was a second of this motion, would you like to speak?
Sorry, I do need to hold the microphone.
Well, you know what?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank the Guild for moving the motion. So my name is Razan. I'm the president of the Curtin Palestinian Society. I'm from Gaza, originally from Jaffa, displaced in 1948. I understand that many students are asking what this has to do with our university, what Gaza has to do with our university, what any of this has to do with our university. I lost 21 members of my family in 2021. A ceasefire was called. People thought it was the end of it, and now 40,000 Palestinians have been killed. Our committee is all Palestinians. We have all lost family in Gaza. You cannot find a single Palestinian that has not lost family in Gaza. It's the fact that the hex that we are paying is going towards contributing to the destruction of Gaza and our families. We don't know when we can return to Gaza. We don't know when the situation will be better. Every single item on the agenda has something to do with either the killing of my family or the settler colonialism that Israel has portrayed. For example, HP Tech, for example, is responsible for providing the electronic system that segregates Palestinians with Israeli citizenship from Israelis with Israeli nationality in the occupied Palestine or Israel. BDS standards are a bare minimum. We should not be at Curtin investing in products that are killing the family of students. We all come from, Curtin's a very multicultural place. We all have our own backgrounds and we all have our own identity. It's very important that we do respect each other's identity and respect that when one person is hurting at Curtin, that we all listen. So I would like to thank the Guild for moving the motion, and that's why I've seconded it.
The encampment movement that's happening around the world is one of the most important steps forward for the Palestine solidarity movement in a very, very long time. And I am extremely glad that it has come to Curtin. I think it's very important that we are taking a stand against our university's ties, research ties, mysterious contracts with weapons companies that are contributing directly to the current genocide. 34,000, at least 34,000 people have been murdered in the last 7 months. Thousands more are buried under the rubble in Gaza. And what we are doing at Curtin here is we're saying we will not just tolerate that and accept it. We're going to stand up against it. And that's what the encampment is about. We will not stand idly by while a genocide is taking place in our lifetimes. We will stand against it.
I will now have a speaker against the motion.
Sorry, I just need to hold the microphone.
That's okay. This resolution, as it stands, is openly endorsing an anti-social, anti-Zionist, and anti-Semitic encampment, and in doing so is neglecting to represent all students, but rather a small proportion of them. Guild's expressions in this draft resolution fails to recognize the role that Hamas has played in this war. It neither denotes Hamas as the designated terrorist group that it is, nor does it call out against the horrific crimes against humanity that Hamas has committed, both prior to October 7, on October 7, and following. It fails to call for the release of the hostages, both dead and alive, an act which would stop the war immediately, and yet another blatant ignorance of an international war crime. You fail to acknowledge that Hamas started this war. You fail to acknowledge the role they play in harming Palestinian lives. You fail to acknowledge they embed themselves among civilians, that their rockets fall short and kill their own. You fail to acknowledge that out of the 34,000, more than 15,000 are actually Hamas terrorists. By ignoring the role that Hamas has played in this conflict, the Guild is effectively endorsing Hamas and seeking to prevent Israel from defending itself, perpetuating the conflict and enabling anti-Semitic behavior on campus. The Guild claims on its website to represent us, the students, but this resolution fails to acknowledge the existence of students with different views. It fails to acknowledge that there are Jews on your campus. You claim that your mission is to create a fun and vibrant community, yet this encampment and this resolution does the opposite by excluding Jewish students from campus life, making them feel alienated and unsafe. Free speech, like all freedoms, must have its limitations. Phrases used, both posted about and emulated by guilds, both in their social media, in their public letter to the Vice Chancellor, and in this resolution, include Israel out of the Middle East, and from the river to the sea, amongst using terms like genocide and apartheid. These terms threaten and intimidate Jewish students or anyone who disagrees that they're supporting a terrorist intifada, a violent uprising effectively leading to a Jewish genocide, to remove the Jews from the Middle East and to destroy the only Jewish nation from the river to the sea. These are nothing more than phrases used to incite hate towards the Jewish people. They are not calls for peace. They are not calls for unity, and they are not helping the Palestinians.
Just a 20-second warning left for speaking time.
The Curtin Guild claims one of their values to be diversity, valuing difference between people, yet you leave no room for difference, no room for differing opinions, no room for differing political views, and no room for a Jew. The Guild has prevented any other viewpoint from being expressed. You have blocked the only Jewish university club on campus on your social media. Allow for the Jewish voice to be heard and others to be heard. As an ex-African Jew whose family fled Lithuania like many of South African Jewry, trust me when I tell you, we know what is genocide, we know what is apartheid, and Israel is committing and guilty of neither. Jews are not colonial settlers. We are indigenous people with land.
For time, we have to wrap it up. You can speak against the motion again, but for time, we have to wrap up. If you want to have the last closing statement.
Okay. In summary, if you want to pass a resolution as such, it needs to acknowledge and include the responsibility that Hamas has in this war. The responsibility they have to both Jewish and non-Jewish life taken away. What about my family and friends who were murdered? What about hostages who remain in captivity and who are raped, beaten, and driven to daily?
You have to wrap it up now. Thank you.
We will no longer accept
In the pocket, there another speaker for the motion. Yep, Erin.
So we can go Dylan.
Well, yeah, I think it's very important that the student union here has taken a stand against what is a historic genocide that has seen over 34,000 people murdered, including 14,000 children. And I think that this is part of an important history that student unions have around the world and in this country to historically take a stand against war, against racism, against genocide, like the student movement against apartheid South Africa and against the Vietnam War. I reject the idea that this is anti-Semitic. We've had Jewish speakers come along to our events. I think that's really important and connected to the very inspiring stand that we're seeing in America being taken by the Jewish Voices for Peace, who can see that this is a genocide and that nothing can excuse something like this. And we stand for, from the river to the sea, for freedom and equality and enter apartheid for Palestinians.
Is there another speaker against the motion? Yep. Oh, sorry. Sorry. It's in the corner just here, like.
Hello? I would just like to point out that within this conflict, there's obviously fault on both sides. But I think that the Guild has played a poor role in acknowledging the fault of Hamas, the democratically elected quote-unquote government of the Gaza Strip, in their terror activities. Sure, there are problems on both sides of this conflict, as there are in all wars. And I think it's important that both sides are looked at, especially when one side in their founding charter says, oh, and when we look, the Jew will be pointed out behind the tree, and the tree will say, come, kill the Jew. I would just like the Guild to have an even-handed perspective on this conflict. That's all.
Yeah, we'll have another speaker for the motion. I think we have someone online who wants to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, we can hear.
I just wanted to speak in support of this motion. It's important to note that what's been happening in Palestine did not start on the October attacks, and people are always welcome the AGM to submit motions to condemn international violence that should be condemned. However, what this motion is about supporting the Palestinian people that are currently being oppressed, currently being found by many groups to have been the victim of genocide, ethnic cleansing. It's important that as students we stand up and we support the fact that there's currently a very awful oppressor that's out there that's currently overseeing some of the worst crimes against humanity that we've seen in war for a very long time. I think that we do need to recognise the fact that there is a power imbalance as well here, and that some certain groups just seem to be speaking out in support of the Israeli government rather than necessarily speaking out in support of humanity itself. It's important that as a student guild, we recognise the fact that every single university in Gaza is gone. Every single student in Gaza is gone. If that was happening here in WA, I would hope that the international community and students around the world would at least do the very least and support a motion that recognises the fact that what's happening is awful and that more needs to be done by governments, by universities to actually help the Palestinian people. And we know that the Israeli government is, in my opinion, the government is acting more like a fascist state than a reasonable government. And they've been committing what has been well recognised by people to be war crimes. And the government has also been known to be the people that funded Hamas to try and divide the Palestinian people. And the Israeli government funded that. So it just is a bit rich that there's certain people that don't want to acknowledge the suffering of Palestinian people, and the fact that people are losing their lives over this. Tens of thousands of people are losing their lives over this, innocent people. So definitely support this motion, encourage everyone to do the same. Thanks.
I will have one last speaker against the motion before we'll go to a vote. Is there any speaker against? Yeah, it's here.
Yes, my name is Jeff, and I think I need to point out that a lot of what's been said today is factually incorrect. And by repeating the dishonesty, the lies that have been repeated here is a blight on Curtin University. Looking at your motion here, there's calling for a public condemnation of Israel without calling for a public condemnation of Hamas shows the bias and the one-sided attitude that the students have fallen for, unfortunately. Israel's argument is not with the Gazan people. Israel's argument is with Hamas. Hamas have sacrificed the Gazan people in this war. And it's unfortunate that you young students, that other people have fallen for the lies that have been told. And I would have thought, as thinking, intelligent young people, you would have been able to see through that. Thank you.
We'll debate over, we'll go to the vote. Before we vote, I'll reread the motion for everyone. The motion is that the Curtin Student Guild notes the demands of the Curtin Gaza Solidarity Encampment for Curtin University to 1. Divest from all weapons companies, namely Curtin's partnership with Lockheed Martin, Babcock Australasia, Huntington Ingalls Industries. 2. Disclose all university investments and research connections to companies that support or have ties to Israel, the ADF and weapons manufacturing. 3. Divest from all Israeli companies and adhere to BDS standards, including divesting away from HP Tech. 4. Cut ties to Israeli universities. 5. Publicly denounce the ongoing genocide in Gaza, including the destruction of every university in Gaza and the horrific killing of Palestinian students, academics and staff. This has been moved by Veronica and seconded by Razan. Can I have a show of hands of all those in favour of the motion? I'm just going to do a quick count. Have your hand like high in the air if you are voting for the motion. That's 50. Oh, that's 52 votes yes in person and 5 online. This motion is carried. Next, we have further questions and other business. Did anyone have anything they would like to raise before closing the meeting? If not, I would like to close the AGM for 2024 at 1:11 p.m. Make sure if you haven't used your drink voucher, use it and get some free food. It's very good. Thank you everyone for coming out today and showing the support for the people of Palestine.